approved as demanded herein, the city may file this notice with the clerk and recorder to put purchasers on notice and to halt all future development. Finally, a civil action is allowed under both 13.40.160 and under the Montana Code annotated section 76-2-308 subsection 2, which says, in case any building or structure is erected, constructed, reconstructed, altered, repaired, converted, or maintained, or any building, structure, or land is used in violation of this part or of any ordinance or other regulation made under authority conferred hereby, the proper local authorities of the municipality, in addition to other remedies, may institute any appropriate action or procedures to prevent such unlawful erection, construction, reconstruction, alteration, repair, conversion, maintenance, or use, to restrain, correct, or abate such violation, to prevent the occupancy of such building, structure, or land, or to prevent any illegal act, conduct, business, or use in or about such premises. We can appreciate that you may plead ignorance to the various requirements that led to Arrowhead's violation of the city code and the MCA. However, the city is not willing to turn a blind eye to violations of the code, as doing so will undermine the seriousness of the infraction and intent behind the code. Please let me know by June 2nd, 2025 if you waive personal service of this notice. If I do not hear from you, we will take steps to serve you with the notice. Sincerely, Edward J. Guzza. And as you recall, Mr. McIntyre's attorney has been in touch with the city attorney, and now it's in the attorney's hands as we move forward with this. Thank you. You're welcome. Other comments or questions?
One more.
Okay, last one.
Okay. Just for clarification, Mr. McIntyre says that he had approval from Mr. Fadness to move them units on that property for storage. And Mr. Fadness says he did not. I just clarify who's right here.
The attorneys would be my response.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, thank you all.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, where?
Mayor, yes,
Yes,
please.
for the record,
For the record,
you are,
I am John Stenzel.
thank you,
I am the city compliance officer.
yes.
I'll keep this brief. When I met Mr. McIntyre, it was a fact-finding mission for me to find out what the intentions were. I in no way, shape, or form told Mr. McIntyre that it was okay to use that property for storage. Based on the way the ordinance is written, and the way I read it, is that it's a change of property. So I did not, just for the record, I did not state that it was okay to store those homes on that property.
All right, thank you all very much for attending. We will move on to the remainder of the city council agenda. What, you don't want to stay?
Can't hear you.
Sorry, front row seat next time. Next item on the agenda is the bulk water rate proposal. Which water committee member is going to report?
Well, basically, we, met, and it was, Andy and I, and Mayor Bowser, and, reviewed the current rates, and then called Eric, and Eric had done some research on that as well. And Angie did a bunch of math stuff, and it was great. And we decided, or we advised that we increase the bulk water rate to 2 cents.
I believe that would be established a rate,
Yeah.
okay? The
Thank you.
bulk water rate of 2 cents per gallon.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. The only rate we have available to us for bulk water rate is that service line rate up to whatever, what size service line do we use for those, Eric? Is
I
it,
believe it's the 3/4,
Quarter.
and then up to 9,000 gallons.
right, so under that metered rate, which makes the bulk water very, very, very affordable. And don't really think that that's appropriate.
Yeah,
Yes,
so it would be 9103 for 9,000 gallons of water, and then 90 cents for every 1,000 gallons after that, is what is currently in the ordinance.
and that's the only mechanism we have right now for bulk water, which struck us as not being quite what we ought to be doing.
So it's 2 cents per gallon,
That's the recommended,
so
recommendation.
9,000 gallons, 180. So double it. I mean, Brett,
Well, currently, right now, if you do the math, give or take the rounding of numbers, the current rate structure to our citizens right now is 1.5 cents.
and they're paying more. than-
Bulk.
Yeah. I just want to make sure. Is that enough?
It's
No,
never
I know.
enough,
Yeah.
but is it reason, is it reasonable?
reasonable? We hope it is reasonable.
Thank you.
And that's, as Sandy said, based on the math that she did at each one of those metered rates. 1.5 cents to a little bit more,
More, yeah.
committee recommended rounding up to 2 cents a gallon for bulk.
Amazing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Feel free.
When I looked into this roughly a year ago, a lot of other counties, or not counties, cities were using 2 to 3 cents a gallon, is what they were charging.
How many
So,
years ago?
roughly a year ago, when I realized how cheaply we were selling the bulk water rate, so.
I mean,
Yes.
I guess my question is, if we raise it, are they gonna quit buying it? I don't think so.
No, no, a perfect example was when the railroad came through this year in the dead of winter, we actually had snow on the ground, and we could have charged him $100 a gallon and he would have bought it. I mean, it was for fire suppression and he needed it, you know, so, I mean, yeah, guys like that who come through, it ain't gonna matter.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I don't, mean, I think 2 cents is 2 cents, granted per gallon, but I mean, what's a pump? $5,000, $10,000 to get a new pump?
Oh, yeah,
So I mean, what's 2 cents? I mean, I'm just,
yeah.
I'm not, seeing you guys didn't do your homework, I'm gonna be honest.
Can I build on
Yes.
this question, because it's a good
Absolutely.
point? What does bulk water mean? What's the minimum amount you have to ask for before it's considered a bulk rate?
I would turn to the city council to give me a definition of what you want that to be.
I'm looking back to Chase coming in with 15,000 gallons,
So.
and his
in-
cost, based on this, his cost would drop considerably.
So the, understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
The bulk water rate would kick in when somebody's filling up something from the well.
I'm concerned that the public won't appreciate the distinction,
How so?
because when somebody like Chase comes in and says he's using 15,000 a month, and we come in and say, well, yeah, but they're gonna fill up a truck with 10,000 on the spot in a couple of minutes.
But Chase is paying 1.5 cents, and we're asking for a bulk water rate for them to pay 2, so we're charging them more for the same thing.
Except that Chase is getting charged $700. Where's my calculator? I don't think he's paying 2 cents, I think he's paying a lot more.
15,000 gallons,
That's why I'm getting the calculator out.
$300.
Well, he said 606, well, eliminating the sewer and stuff, it was like $600 or $660 for the water. It's right here. Water, $661.29.
Yeah.
Come on, calculator.
I just smelled the hot mess, I just,
No,
So-
you're actually bringing up a really good point.
But my question is does Chase, is that metered?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, he's,
See,
he's
Chase is,
metered. Now, remember the resolution setting the water rates is tiered based on the size of service line. The analysis that was done by our engineers at the time the Cedar Lagoon project was going in, that's when the process, when that general structure was adopted, okay? And it was done so based on the size service line and how much water could go through in a month, okay? And, so since 2019, that general structure has been in place for city water. Understand his concern, okay?
and when you're done, if I could.
Yeah, and so, setting that aside at the moment, when we look at the monthly, the base rates for the service lines and the maximum gallons that can be used before they incur any additional cost, that's where that 1.5 cents comes from. Okay? Okay. So, setting a bulk rate, I see two different aspects of it, while I appreciate where you're coming from. We have no bulk rate. We are undervaluing the water we sell at bulk, okay? We need to change that. And to get that into a more appropriate, if you will, sales price. And then we also do need to take a look at the other rates. I was aware, had forgotten, but was aware of the usage at the laundromat and saying, wow, I mean, this is what we adopted, this is what we need to be charging, okay, because that's what we said we would do. But I also said, that's a lot of money to pay for, however, the 13, whatever the gallons usage was. And so I said, maybe we do need to take a look at that. But I don't think that should delay a discussion on a bulk water rate.
So just to toss this out there to you, so Chase Reagan is charged $661.29 on his usage form. His highest usage is $29,200. If you do the math on that, that's 2 cents.
On the highest point, yes.
On the highest point, well, so, according to his usage.
What is it for the average?
Average 15s,
Okay,
15,125.
I mean, 661 divided by 15,000 is 4.4 cents.
yeah, it's 4 cents.
So you're double.
Well, and please bear in mind, I'm not suggesting that we're trying to solve Chase's problem right now.
Correct.
No.
That's on
And-
the agenda
and-
the next week for a reason.
Yeah, and
But
I
I
think
am
we need
bringing
to
it
have
up
a
so that we're considering all of this in the same weight. If a city resident were to discover that they're paying 2 to 2.5 times for their water that we're charging for bulk water, we might have an interesting argument in the council meeting to have to discuss.
And rightfully so.
On the other hand, I'm kind of thinking the same way Nate is. It's like, why aren't we charging 3.5 cents?
I mean, I don't know if it's outrageous or not.
No, I mean, if they want the bulk water, they're gonna pay for it.
I did just think of something that I mentioned earlier at the budget meeting. We need to look at our energy costs too with those going up, cause that'll directly affect how much it costs to pump a gallon of water. You know, and cause roughly a year ago, if it does go up 22% in our energy costs, well, yeah, it's gonna cost us more X to get that gallon out. So, yeah, that is something that,
This, in fact,
I got
if you'll
it.
recall, it
is.
like a month and a half ago, when we were discussing the really rough idea of how do we shift the whole city to meters and would it make it more fair? And that only works if you consider everything that's involved in the cost of getting a gallon of water to the house.
Yeah.
And that's what you're bringing up. We don't completely know what it costs to get a gallon of water just about anywhere.
Well, and the comparison of Townsend, population size to Phoenix, is just not reasonable.
Nor is the amount of water that's available to them either.
Well, and we don't know what debt structure they may have or whatever improvements were done. I could see the point that he made, but I think that one needs to be left for next meeting's agenda.
Right. Right. The economy, yes, Nate.
I'm sorry, do we need a decision tonight on the bulk?
It's just a recommendation for us.
Right.
I mean, and that's why, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that, council can certainly say, you know, let's mull this over, given the information that has been presented tonight. Once you decide what rate you want to charge for bulk water, it would go into a resolution, there's a public hearing, so we're probably 2 months from implementing it.
So in the meantime, if somebody comes in, we're at the,
So,
We're giving our water
so
away.
fast it'll be.
yeah, so pretty much, if they came in at 110,000 gallons, which is what prompted this conversation to happen, I think roughly it's like $180
Yeah.
for 110,000 gallons, which is half your water tower right now.
Isn't that amazing?
And we're talking about being outrageous, pushing that 180 up to like $275. I'm
So
beginning
we're
to wonder
too
why
cheap.
we're not charging
We need-
60
Yeah,
cents.
so it's 8 cents a gallon.
Or even 90 cents a gallon.
Right, that is,
Yep.
I appreciate the fact that there's other cities that are charging pretty low rates, but I agree, Mayor, I think we need to find out, if, to the best of our ability, what the cost, projected cost, a rough guess a year from now, what that cost might look like. If Northwestern gets their way with all of their increases, what does that do to putting a gallon of water in somebody's truck? Because at the very least, they've gotta pay for that plus some surcharge for the water itself.
Well, and guys, helping.
And the cost of the pump's replacement, and, you know, this calculation can get pretty ugly, but the better we are at it, the more realistic the number's
So-
gonna be.
Eric, can we, I realize that, for lack of a better word, meter on one of the wells wasn't working real well. Sometimes I even listen to what I say. When Jim Beck was in and gave his presentation on the sewer lagoon and that sort of thing, some of those measurements were skewed because we can't, at this point, measure the water that goes through one of the wells. Is that correct? Okay, but can we approximate?
Yeah, and to answer that question a little bit more thorough, I've put that pump in, not to bore you, but in the very last position. So the other two, they have my good meters fired first, so I have a really good, for the last 3-4 months, I have a really good idea of what my water consumption is. But,
Okay,
Is the replacement of that third meter on the
Mhm.
things for the
yep, I haven't done it cause it's in the project. You know, I put one in, it's gonna get replaced with what they need for their spec, so that's why I
Why do
haven't
it
done
now
it.
then? Yeah.
so perhaps, give me a chance to think about this. We've got some average water usage, could maybe annualize that and look at the expenses over the last year or two, and apply an inflation factor and get you an approximate cost per gallon too.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be great.
Don't we also have like an estimated cost in our water tower project for the replacements of those pumps?
We do, yep.
So we would have that readily available to us as well?
Right, so into the future, we also will have debt service that needs to be covered. So,
And when you're all done with this, Mayor, it would be interesting.
I'm
to
just gonna
compare
round
that
up to the next 10.
Well, I would be curious to compare it to the average, for lack of a better word, per gallon cost that we're charging our residents. If we come up with a number that ends up being measurably lower than the average of the residents, we're being generous to the bulk buyers and not
I don't
generous to
think
the people
that's
that elect
gonna
us.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can get to that point, JB, because of the flat rates.
One thing at a time then.
Yeah. So the low end of on the metered rate, that's what the flat rate is.
Okay,
Okay. So if people are using 9,000 gallons or less of water, whether they're metered or not, they're paying at the same rate. Okay? Let me see what we can do here. It's good discussion, thank you.
lawyer knew a day and $1 short.
Timing's everything, Sean. Okay,
So,
yes.
Angie and I can schedule another water committee meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you, lady, for doing that.
Yep.
And of course.
Okay, something really easy. The interlocal agreement for city prosecution services. This is an extension, the current agreement ends June 30th. And took me a little while to get in touch with the county attorney, but the upshot is same amount for this next fiscal year
And the year after that.
and the year after that. So 2 years at the same rate that we were paying before, that's not a bad thing.
No, no.
Of course, it might be indicative that we overpaid for the services, but, you know,
This is,
given,
you had to
given
rain on
the-
the parade.
I'm just saying,
We were feeling so good about this.
holding the city's costs steady is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
So, just to refresh your memories, the compensation is, I know it's in here.
it's like $13.25 a month.
Yes, yep. 15.25.
$15.25, there we go.
$13,725 a year payable monthly at $1,525. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the contract.
I will make a motion that we approve the interlocal agreement for city prosecution services with the county, Broward County.
Is there a second?
I'll second that
It's-
motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement with city prosecution services. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the advance ordinance. Finally, okay. Who has something to say about the events ordinance?
Thank God it's finally here.
Okay. Anyone wanna present a summary?
If I may, Mayor,
Yes.
the first page of the presentation provides us with a pretty good summary. We have a block of definitions to help people understand what we're talking about. We have a declaration of the right of the public to use public space and what those basic limits are. We have a block that actually goes into the permits and reservations, and we did try to deal with both permitting an event and reserving city infrastructure such as the pavilion at Heritage Park. We deal with a lot of things, because an event can be a fairly complicated thing. We deal with the issues of solicitors for those events who wish to take responsibility for solicitors. We base that very heavily off of the successful dealings that Fallfest and the Rotary have had with solicitors. And so the choice of the permit submitter is, if I'm responsible, I have to do all the paperwork, make sure the city's informed of it, that the costs of solicitors are waived. That allows the event host to collect such dues or fees as they seem reasonable for managing their event. or they can choose not to be responsible, in which case the solicitor's ordinance kicks in entirely, and solves the problem. We have sections for authority, sections for compliance, sections that address how this is going to affect the noise ordinance, fireworks, alcohol, a whole bunch of stuff. And in the end, we have the necessity for the council once a year to review the fee structure for all of this and the inventory of city amenities, so that in the end, the public has a simple place to go to get all of these small details that are inefficiently embedded in an ordinance itself.
Thank you.
Angie, do you agree?
I agree. And there's a couple of sections in here too, where every time we had a meeting, we talked about specific sections, and we left them in this ordinance for the city attorney to review
There's notes.
for feedback on how he felt about those specific issues. And in this, draft that we presented, JB did have, he has notes in there where those sections are.
And those, when it says no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, it is, nice, complete document, and I like it. The only question I had, and it's just a small one, is, what is the difference between the controlled access and the exclusionary purpose? Is it just like the first one on the definition? I know you use it in there, like an example of a, exclusionary purpose, is that kinda like the right of the host?
Well, Fall Fest is an exclusionary purpose.
Because of the vendors that they,
They have
But it's-
managerial control over the property during the event.
uh-huh,
Controlled access locks the people out. A wedding would be a controlled access event,
okay,
where the public has no expectation of access during the event.
okay. Cool, so that's all, I like visuals.
Visually, especially when I talk with my hands.
Okay,
With respect to page 9 of 14, section 30.007. And processing fees, is there a mechanism to set that fee schedule, or did I miss that?
city council.
That was the resolution that the city would do once a year, is that correct?
That's correct,
Okay.
and that's, that whole section, I ended up, because I didn't wanna have to repeat it over and over and over again. That is the section
Okay,
.40,
Thank you.
public space and amenity schedules, fees and inventories.
It's like when, chiropractor, or
Adam?
comes in, is that the section that he would say, this is the one I want to get my availability or?
Fundamentally, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, to be honest, while I expect it's gonna take us once or twice to get it all right, because it's the first time we've done it, once we've done it, somebody like Adam could take a couple of sheets of paper and see everything the city has to offer, and what fees, if any, because we can choose, that we're gonna charge for those amenities, what the fees and processing fees are for submitting any application or reservation, for a permit or a reservation, and know exactly what their costs are, what the dates and times are, everything.
So it'll be like the street closure request, only a lot more and tailored to that.
This, yeah,
Or approval.
I mean, the street closure request is kind of,
Simple.
yeah, it's very simple because it's looking at just one kind of problem.
Right.
And one of the basic goals of the committee was making sure that everybody, like the farmer's market, were being treated equally. They all knew, were playing by exactly the same rules and knew where to get the rules.
And then this allows the office and the mayor to create that.
It authorizes all of
form
that.
And include all of those items that are listed.
And initially, when the event comes forward for the first time, this allows for the council to see it, hear it, know about it, and then it moves to the mayor's office the next time it comes around, that it meets the same criteria in the ordinance, so that it doesn't have to keep coming before council every single time that it happens.
And they need to start that process essentially
Early.
3 months
We-
before
yeah,
the
that's-
event.
we-
And then,
Specify really early dates.
so they're even
Is there something in there?
earlier
if they don't?
because,
I guess, it's the, people get busy.
But people do get busy, but
Then she can
as
say
this is
no.
written, the council can say no because they
There's
didn't
a-
do it.
Well, I don't get to no, but can we also say yes? I mean, can we?
This, yes, because the council is the court of last resort. We can override
There's a section
almost
of denial
anything.
in there.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that if
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
It goes to the mayor first for denial, and then the next step would be to bring it back.
You
to
realize
council.
that's where I live a lot of my time.
In denial.
In denial.
This is, if
If
everything
we're
works
all
out.
lucky,
Yeah, if everything works out correctly, the goal of this, as lengthy as it is actually to make this very turnkey and easy in the future. Once everybody's gone through the pain of doing it the first time, at that point, it's just kerchunk, kerchunk, kerchunk every year, and off we go having great events.
I don't know, every year, emergency meetings for this and that, street closure.
Okay, so.
I'm so sorry it
So
got
the
away
street,
from
the
me.
street closures are a different, they're just a different animal, and just on that note, I will tell you that John Fuchs has already contacted us about the street dance, and that, Carrie, that's on our next agenda, right?
Yes,
This is,
Great.
what's the schedule for it? Rodeo?
the rodeo.
Oh, rodeo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay.
he will be here in June,
June,
and,
July, and August.
yeah.
did I hear that the rodeo got pushed back a week?
To like the 8th,
8th, 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th, okay.
yes.
We might wanna let them know for the water project. I just heard that on Saturday.
That's actually a good point.
I didn't know
Rodeo
that.
got
Well, we
pushed
just
back?
had an update with COP, and we were
Rodeo
talking
got
about
pushed.
the,
Later in August by 1 week.
it got pushed a week.
Do we, any
Did John
idea
know?
why?
I don't know.
I'll make sure John knows if he's gonna come in.
I mean, that is correct, right, Carrie?
I believe so, because my 40th class reunion is that weekend.
Oh,
And it's over rodeo weekend.
yeah, I don't know the reason.
Is that why they changed it,
Yeah.
just
Well,
so
you're
that
right,
you
we're
can-
in, yeah.
Well, a little
Okay.
while, we're trying to avoid reading out equipment during the rodeo event.
All right, so, at this point in time, does the committee believe this is ready to go for a legal review then?
If council has no objections with what they read, yeah, the next step's legal review.
Okay. Okay, let's just make this real official. Is there a motion to that effect?
I make a